Child of the Wolves, Chapter 19, Searching for Snowdrift, page 118. Life in the pack went on as it had before Granite left. Now that the dog knew the loneliness and danger of a solitary life, he accepted the blows and nips of Romer and Strider. He still hoped to please Ebony, but he wondered if that day would ever come. The weather grew mild. During the day, the snow was soft, but at night the top froze into a hard crust that made traveling easy. The lakes and rivers were still thick with ice, but on the small creeks, water had begun to flow. It would soon be spring. Granite climbed a rise and saw a bear digging for roots on the mountain slope, her cub playing beside her. That says club, but it should be cub. That's a misprint in the book. Her cub instead of club. Her cub is a baby bear. Her cub playing beside her. Then he saw a flight of swans, as white as new-fallen snow, spread across the cloudless blue sky. Everywhere there were birds, black-headed chickadees, red-headed finches, noisy jays, and big red-breasted robins. Ever since the first robin appeared, Snowdrift had been restless. She knew that it was time for the birth of pups, but there were none in the pack this year. Late in the morning she often disappeared and was gone for hours. Ebony behaved as if nothing were wrong, as if she had gone looking for small game. That was something any member of the pack might do. Yet all the wolves, and even Granite, knew the hunt was not for hare or squirrels, but for her lost pups. Although Snowdrift knew the pups were gone forever, she still spent her days searching for them. Each day she hoped to find her babies, and each time she failed, she grieved anew. One evening Snowdrift did not come back. She had never stayed away so long before. As the sun sank low in the sky, Ebony paced restlessly on the ledge that overlooked the pack's resting place. He walked back and forth, back and forth. Tired of play, the wolves settled silently on their haunches. Their eyes followed Ebony's movements. Darkness fell. Black clouds covered the moon, and a cold wind blew across the snowy fields. Ebony peered into the night. There was nothing to see but branches bending in the wind. His ears stood erect, and he tilted his head, straining for sounds of Snowdrift's return. There was nothing to hear but the soft hoot of an owl, getting ready to make its nightly search for food. Ebony stretched his neck and sniffed deeply. There was nothing to smell but the familiar sense of the resting place. Granite lay still, his nose on his paws, watching Ebony. The leader tried to hide his fears, but the pack could smell them. They were sharper than the scent of mouse, stronger than the odor of squirrel. The smell made the hair on Granite's back stand up and sent uneasy prickles down his spine. At last Ebony howled for the hunt to begin. The song that floated across the clearing was full of uneasy notes. When the last howls died away, the wolves started down the trail. The hunt went poorly. 5 times they stalked a caribou, and 5 times they failed to bring it down. Though they covered many miles, they had only 2 squirrels and an Arctic hare to show for their labor. Hoping to find Snowdrift, Ebony led the pack back to the place where they had slept the day before. The resting place was empty. Everyone was in a bad humor. It was time for the pack to sleep in the shade, but no one felt like sleeping. No one felt like playing either. The wolves walked restlessly back and forth, but no one walked near Ebony. Strider went out of his way to cross Granite's path. As he passed, he snapped and knocked the dog sprawling with a heavy paw. Granite hid behind Breeze and peered cautiously around her legs. She stepped away as if the dog were not there. Ebony was back on the ridge. He stood staring into the distance, as if he expected to see Snowdrift appear at any moment. At last he jumped down and howled for the pack. They stood nose to nose, waiting for Ebony's signal. He howled again, then loped down the trail. The pack fell in line behind him, but no tails wagged. The wolves knew they were not hunting. They were on their way to the old meadow where Snowdrift had last seen her pups. All day they traveled, trotting in the spring sun. Despite the snow on the ground, they panted in the heat, their mouths open and their tongues hanging out. Ebony set such a fast pace that Granite's legs grew tired. At last the pack reached the stream that flowed past a broad meadow. By now dusk was gathering. The wolves followed Ebony along the stream bank until he signaled that it was time to rest. He lay down beneath a clump of willows. Granite and the wolves found comfortable spots and curled up to sleep. Ebony did not rest long. He jumped up and began to pace, just as he had the day before when Snowdrift did not return. He came over to where Breeze and Granite were dozing. He looked down at them. He nudged Breeze's paws and saw that they were sore. He sniffed Granite's mouth. He knew that the pack could go no farther. Ebony found another spot and lay down, but he did not close his eyes. The last thing Granite saw before he fell asleep was Ebony, on his feet again, staring down the trail.